You're listening to Scribble Talk, a podcast for bid and proposal professionals. My name is Baachu, and with my co-host,
Ashley Case,
we will be sitting down with our industry veterans to share their stories, discuss their career, and learn how they are making an impact in the industry.
Today's guest is Caryn Kent Dean. For 23 years, Caryn Kent Dean has worked as a proposal writer and manager for corporate and government bid opportunities. She has been a proud member of the APMP for 6 years and supports the APMP Greater Midwest Chapter as a chair for the Consultants Virtual Networking Group. Caryn took her first job as a proposal writer with a young library management system software company after finishing her Master's of Library and Information Science in 1997. The proposal management industry is always throwing new challenges Caryn's way, and this remains one of the most fulfilling aspects of the job. The combination of writing, project management, and working with a variety of professionals keeps each project interesting and invites new ways to grow and learn. As a business owner, she is passionate about creating opportunity for her clients and other proposal professionals. In becoming a consultant and starting her own business, she has been able to spend more time with family, including her husband of 18 years, 3 kids, and a rescue pup Scout. One of her family's favorite pastimes includes heading to their 55-acre property in Northwest Illinois to unplug and enjoy hiking and exploring the nearby creek. Creating a virtual working space has also allowed Caryn and her family to take advantage of their acreage, as this is the ultimate social distancing retreat. While her kids can spread out and spend time in nature, Caryn can work and enjoy a gorgeous view of rolling fields with a few cows instead of cubicles. Welcome, Caryn, to Scribble Talk. Great to have you with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
So Caryn, we love to start in the beginning. So we're curious, where were you born? Where did you grow up and where did you go to school?
I was born in Chicago. My parents grew up in and around Chicago. So we grew up in a suburb just outside of Chicago. Went to school in LaGrange Park and LaGrange. And from there, I went to college at Loyola.
Wow. Okay. So was your first job really right out of school in proposals?
No, it was my first job out of school was actually, I took a part-time job in the library. And after about a year, my parents were transitioning to a new home during that time. And after about a year, I decided it was time to get a full-time job because they were all settled in. By that point, I was trying to figure out where I would want to work because the concept of a corporate job didn't really resonate with me. But I'd always loved libraries. I worked in libraries in high school. And so I decided to look for library-related or research-related jobs. And I went to work as a conflicts analyst for a big law firm in Chicago.
Huh, interesting.
Another job, nobody knows what it is.
Yeah. So how did that kind of evolve into you finding proposals?
Well, my manager there had a library background and had her master's in library and information science. And so there was a program locally that had classes at the Chicago Public Library. So I could literally walk to my classes from work. And so I enrolled at Rosary College, which is technically in River Forest, Illinois. Took most of my classes downtown. And about a year later, I moved to Oak Park. So I'd be very close to River Forest. And I'd be able to take classes either downtown or in River Forest as I finished my master's.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. And so that eventually led you to that proposal job?
Yeah. So I met the founder of the software company I ended up working for at a career day event. He was on a panel of other professionals talking about opportunities for librarians in the after graduation. I did apply for several traditional library jobs, and I could have taken those, but I decided that it was pretty exciting in the late 90s to have an opportunity with a startup software company. So that's the direction I took.
Yeah, absolutely. And so can you tell us how your proposal career kind of evolved from there?
Well, they were incredibly chaotic. There were only two of us responding to proposals, and their market was academic and research libraries. So almost every client required an RFP to procure the library management system. And this was the time when everything was shifting from command-based to graphical user interfaces. So they were a kind of an early adopter of more modern technology at that time.
Yeah.
Worked crazy hours, really no processes. They did have a content library and templates, but that was about it. And I would work crazy days. So after I liked the work and I loved the team and I loved the wins, but I wanted something different for my life.
Yeah.
So I moved through a few other positions there. I became a trainer and got to travel around the world training clients on that software.
Oh, wow.
And that was a really great experience for, I think, becoming a mentor. And then I spent another year after that as a project manager for clients implementing the system. And I took a step away from that company for a little while and tried out another startup software company, but that was a little bit too chaotic yet. And then the company that I'd started with, Endeavor, invited me back to be their first proposal manager. And by that time, the team had grown to, I want to say, 6 people, but there was no cohesion. They weren't like a real team. They were just a bunch of people doing the same job in parallel. And so what I got to do, because I had kept my relationships with my former colleagues, and they knew my frustrations with the lack of process and the fact that people would work 20-hour days, which just really isn't okay. So they talked to me about coming back to be the first proposal manager to really lead that team and create a cohesive teams and set of processes and mitigate risk for the organization. And then at the same time, mitigate turnover because you're not burning your people out.
Yeah, so important, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. And then so eventually you moved on and you became an entrepreneur, right?
Yes. I actually had the best job in the world for about 10 years. I got to spend time at home with my 3 kids. And when my daughter went to full-time kindergarten, I decided it was time to find a full-time position again. And so I knew I could lean back on those proposal management skills. And I took a job with an accounting and consulting company. I really enjoyed working with my colleagues. And I thought I would be happy in a lower level position because life was crazy with kids in kindergarten, 1st and 3rd grade. And there was just a lot going on. But it turns out I wasn't. I got bored quickly. It wasn't as challenging as, at least the work, the managing life was a little bit more challenging, but the work itself wasn't as challenging as I would have liked. So I moved on to another company as a proposal manager, and there it was incredibly challenging. And I also learned there that I could be a consultant because it was a Fortune 500 value-added reseller and services company for IT. And every opportunity I led was entirely different. Different sales team, different subject matter expert team, sometimes very large teams in different time zones. So we would have multiple meetings. And so I really enjoyed that work and I was really good at it. So I had a really heavy workload pretty quickly. And it just really became a challenge because I'm definitely in a place in my life where I'm helping to care for older parents and younger kids and not having control over where I work, or I guess having the choice of where I work and what hours I work, because my workload was so heavy, became a challenge. And I was burned out. I was exhausted. High levels of anxiety because of the surgeries my dad was needing to have at the time. And I loved my colleagues there, but I didn't feel like I had a lot of empathy or understanding of all of the stresses going on in my life. And that my life wasn't just as somebody who works, but there are all these other things that are important to me. You know, health and wellness are certainly something that I wasn't able to focus on. Right. But then also, you know, feeling like I was doing a good job of taking care of my family and having the flexibility to be there to support my mom as she was supporting my dad recovering from surgeries. So that's one of my passions. And I think this carries through to when I first started in the proposal world. I think even when you have processes, when you don't have enough support on any, you know, pursuit team, it's really challenging for the proposal managers and writers. And there are a lot of different titles that are used for the different categories of responsibilities across our industry, but we so frequently are expected to wear many hats.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I guess I didn't feel supported. And one of my passions with having my own business now and serving clients and bringing on employees and contractors to work with my clients is that we get to set boundaries and expectations. And we also get to decide to bring in additional support when needed.
Yep.
And that can make all the difference. And so I really love strategy. And so becoming a business owner has been a blessing from that perspective, because I'm constantly in a place of working on strategy. But I also enjoy mentoring and working with different types of proposals and different industry areas all the time. So it's really been fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a good feeling, I can imagine, to go from having very little kind of control over your schedule to being able to set those boundaries and help clients to have the right support levels so that people can have a manageable workload and have a really solid process to get that proposal out the door.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the coolest things is that our clients really appreciate us. Yes. In corporate, there are many times where I'd be wherever, if I could walk down the hall and talk with somebody, I would try to find them. However, frequently it was phone tag or email because they were in different locations. And the fact that they I don't know, I guess they all had really heavy workloads. And so I feel like the concept of working on proposals was a little bit overwhelming, or it was annoying because we had to mitigate risk for our company. And so there were policies that we had to implement. And not everybody likes having to stay within those lines.
Yeah, totally understand that, having worked in both kind of the corporate world and the consultant world.
Right.
Yeah, dealing with those stresses and people's workloads, it's one of the challenges, right? So let's dive a little bit into APMP. When did you first hear about APMP and how did you get involved?
I actually had learned about it when I was a proposal manager in the early 2000s. However, I think it was somewhat new and there wasn't a lot of knowledge about professional development in our industry at that point. At least I'm based in the Midwest of the United States, so definitely not as much knowledge about it as I would say in the federal marketplace out east. So it was really when I went back to work that I wanted to pursue both membership and certification. continuous learning is something that's really important to me. Even when I wasn't a full-time employee, I did a lot of volunteer work, and I got to learn about a lot of different aspects. I did a little bit of grant writing, and I volunteered for the parent-teacher organization and got to learn about how 501c3s work, and even the approval process of becoming a 501c3. And so when I did go back to proposal writing, and I think it takes about 6 months every time I would start a new job to like really feel confident in what I was doing. At that point, I asked about pursuing foundation certification and membership in APMP.
Oh, awesome. And so do you remember kind of your first BidCon experience, whether it be, you know, kind of the local event in the Midwest or a larger BidCon?
Yes. Let's see. It was at the second corporate job I was working with, they did support going to the Greater Midwest Chapter Symposium. And so several colleagues and I did go to that. Because I had a lot of projects going, I found myself very busily working on proposals while there, as much as I was lending an ear to the presentations. And so I think that made it really challenging to be fully present and benefit from all the amazing content and potential for connecting that were available there. So when I left my last corporate job, I kind of also decided I'd come to the point where I was unemployable, because I guess I like the idea of both having flexibility of time, but also agility to make changes to processes to fit the deal appropriately, as opposed to always having to follow this big book of processes. So once I, let's see, I started my business in 2018. The 2019 BidCon was the first BidCon I went to, and it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. Being in rooms where you didn't have to explain what RFPs were was certainly a bonus. And that everybody just kind of knew how crazy this work can be, but also how fun.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of camaraderie from the BidCon is, I think, one of the most eye-opening things after your first experience, right?
Absolutely. And I'm actually really happy that the first time I went, I wasn't an employee of another company, because I didn't have a posse to hang out with the entire time. And so that pushed me out of my comfort zone, and I got to meet some other amazing people who, you know, weren't in my organization, because my organization was just me at that time. But also some were consultants, some were full-time employees, and it was just such a great experience. And everybody, I think, in this industry is really kind and really friendly. And so it was a really great experience.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So networking is one of the big things that we do at the Bid and Proposal Con, and it's something that you kind of lead the efforts for within the Midwest chapter, right? Can you tell us a little bit about your consultants virtual networking group?
Absolutely. One of the people I met at BidCon in 2019 is Stacy Dewey, who was going to be the incoming chair for the Greater Midwest Chapter in 2020. And one of the things I mentioned to her was, wouldn't it be nice, since we're as consultants owning our own businesses so frequently alone, wouldn't it be nice if we had others to tap for questions, or just, you know, blowing off steam or what have you? And even, you know, just to have the opportunity to network and have other people in the, even if it's virtual room, who know what you do and understand. And so she encouraged me to submit a proposal to the GMC board to create the virtual networking group. And we announced it at the 2019 Greater Midwest Chapter Symposium. We announced it towards the end of a panel that I put together that was about the consulting side of the industry, because I think that we have a lot of content about proposals in general and managing your career within companies, but not so much about, well, how do you become a consultant and what's involved and what are the challenges? So I collaborated with Sam Enslin, Stacy Dewey, and Michelle Atkinson. And we had a really fun presentation, and we just answered questions and had a really honest conversation. And we had, I think, about 30 people attend that session, but I think it really helped. And it was, I think, one of the most fun experiences I've had, because I tend to be very shy. And so getting up in front of a crowd and managing a panel like that and participating in it myself isn't necessarily my comfort zone, but it was so much fun that I think I learned that it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, that first presentation, I think, is always, a little bit kind of nerve-wracking, but I think they become a little bit easier from there, right?
yeah, I hope so.
So before we move over into our surprise rapid fire questions round, or our Nutters round, can you tell us 3 things that not many people know about you?
I studied in Italy my sophomore year of college and traveled all over Europe. But the summer after, I stayed in Italy and worked on an excavation in the Roman Forum.
Wow.
Let's see.
So
Second
cool.
thing, my family's been in the Chicago area for a very long time, and my great-great-grandfather was assistant fire marshal during the Chicago fire.
Wow.
And is one of the inventors of the fire escape.
Oh my gosh.
And third, I guess my husband and I are, before kids, were avid scuba divers and traveled all over the world, including, I think, at one of our most treasured trips was to Micronesia.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Lots of stuff for Bosco to dig into during our next round here. That's amazing.
Definitely. Thank you, Caryn. Thank you, Ashley. So, yes, so Caryn, where do we start? So let's just start. So can you speak any European languages, Caryn?
I minored in Italian, and I studied French and German a couple of semesters each.
Right.
So it's been a while since I've spoken Italian frequently, and so I'm probably really rusty there. There are some virtual groups conversation groups for building up your skills. So I've thought about trying to build those up again, because those were fun times, a year in Italy.
Nice. Definitely. Traveling is always great. And let's talk about your kids. So how old are your kids? What's their name?
So Penelope is the youngest. She is 11. My middle son just turned 14 yesterday. Wow. And my oldest is 15, turning 16 at the end of the month.
Nice.
So my middle is Benjamin and the oldest is Alexander.
Wow. 2 boys and a girl.
2 boys and a girl.
Perfect. I might need to speak to my wife about this now. I have 2 boys, not a girl.
You know what, though? More kids than hands gets interesting.
Yeah. But the
Especially
2
when
boys,
they're little.
Exactly. The 2 boys already make her crazy. So it's fine. I will wish you all the very best. I know what you have been going through so far, and good luck with the teenager years, Caryn. So yes.
So far, it's so good. They've been fun.
Definitely, Caryn. And Caryn, in the introduction, we also talked about one of your family's favorite pastime is go to your place in Northwest Illinois, 55-acre farm. Talk us through, when did you bought that farm, and how often do you go there, and COVID, and how that's been helpful to you?
So when my husband and I were dating and engaged, we would just take trips to get away. And we went out to a little town called Galena, Illinois. Galena is actually a kind of lead, and it's named Galena because there are lead mines out there. So we would go out to Galena, but the town, super cute, historic town, tons of shops, and people would be crowding the streets going to shops, which was great for the town and great for the industry. And that's what some people love to do. But my husband and I would just drive, and we started looking as we were driving, because the land is beautiful, you know, up and down hills, forests, creeks, farms. We would see real estate signs. And back then, the price of acreage was extremely, extremely low, especially compared to in the city. So we started looking at properties and, you know, pull the realtor sheets that they'd have with information about the properties. And then we started learning about, well, what are the rules about buying property out there and how it's zoned, because some of it's agricultural, some of it's recreational, and some of it's residential or commercial. And then we stumbled on the concept that if you buy acreage 40 acres or above, you can subdivide it and build a house without changing the tax rate for the entire property. So we rent our pasture to the farmer from whom we bought our property, and his cows graze on it for about half of the year. The winters are a little too rough out there for the cows to be on our property, but the cows, they literally open up a gate underneath the bridge that goes across the creek, and that's how he gets his cows on our property. So yeah, and so it's fun. My kids understand. I think one of the best things is they understand what a healthy creek looks like because they play in the creek and they explore in the creek. And we've seen the life cycle. They get to see young calves and pregnant moms and nursing cows. And so that's always been fun. And then they also see skeletons. There are coyotes out there, there are deer. So sometimes predators, whether an animal dies naturally or because of a predator, will stumble upon bones and talk about what those are. My dad was a science teacher, and so I've always enjoyed slowing down and like trying to piece together what might have happened. And my kids do that as well. We also we love being out there because you can see animal tracks. You can only see houses from a very far distance. And it's just really beautiful. And one of the kind of cool things too is that there's an old cemetery fenced off on the other hill across from where we have our house. And it's a very interesting cemetery because there are Civil War soldiers buried there. I think there are about 50 graves, and no one's been buried there for a long time. So it'll turn over to the responsibility of the state of Illinois in a while, if it hasn't already technically. But just a lot of really interesting history out there. Obviously lots of nature, opportunities to get outside and just explore and unplug, which is so important.
Definitely, Caryn, definitely. And I'm super blessed that you had this opportunity to step back. I think most of the guys who weren't prepared for lockdown, I think very quickly, who were living in flats and stuff, I think, working from home and not much space around you, there is a lot of issues that came out of that, but I'm glad that you had the space to move around, especially with your kids and stuff. That's great. So let's talk about your hobbies and interests. I know you're an avid reader.
Yes.
Talk us through and also about some of the movies and stuff that you like before we officially enter into the rapid random fire question round.
Okay. So I really love books that are either historical fiction or even biographies. I love reading about the past and what life was like before. I also enjoy reading books by people who live in other parts of the world, especially right now when we can't travel. I find that that's the best way to travel, and also watching movies that are foreign films and take place in other places and are an opportunity to learn about other people's lives.
Wow, nice. Right, let's enter the Nutters round. Caryn, fast, whatever comes in your mind, just go for it. There's no right or wrong answer. And let's celebrate the Nutter who is Howard Nutt. And with the rapid random fire question round. Would you let us hook up your recent played list on Spotify to the office speakers? What is in your current playlist?
A lot of Ed Sheeran, some classical music, and we listen to a lot of 80s music because that's when my husband and I were in high school. So Duran Duran, REM, The Police, for sure. So
that's good. That's a good composition there. Nice. So considering you work with startups and IT-based companies, what's your good app idea? Do you have any ideas yourself that you think, you know what, one day I would like to come out with an app or with a software or something for something? Anything?
You know, there's nothing, I haven't thought of anything in the IT or tech world, but I've always thought it'd be fun if there were an app that was like a quilting game, kind of like, I do quilt too. It's been a while since I've worked on a quilt, but I've made quilts for all of my nieces and nephews and my kids. And kind of like Bejeweled, except creating quilts. I think that would be a cool game for the phone while you're waiting for your kids to finish their activities.
That's a good one. Again, following up with the same thing, if for some reason computers had never been invented, do you think the world would have been a better place?
Yes and no. I think yes, because we would spend more time talking with people as opposed to hiding behind a device. But then no, because some incredible technologies, and honestly, I think our healthcare system has very much been driven by technology, and the amazing therapies that have been developed because of technology wouldn't be here.
Totally. What personality trait has gotten you the most trouble?
I am a rule follower to my own detriment. And sometimes following the rules isn't the right thing to do. It's very rare when that's the case. And what I've learned is that it's actually something that's innate because my oldest son is the same way.
Nice.
Sometimes it's okay for rules to not be black and white.
Totally. What's the last thing you watched on TV and why did you choose to watch it?
Last night, my husband and I were rewatching episodes of Mrs. Maisel. And we watched it because it's a really interesting time in history. It takes place in the late 50s and early 60s when civil rights and women's rights were really becoming a conversation point.
Nice.
It's a really smart, witty show.
If you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be and why?
Well, a few years ago, we planted an oak tree in our backyard. And we chose it because oak trees are really beautiful. They grow slowly and live for a long time. And they're also indigenous to this area. So they're native trees to this area. So I think I'd probably be like our oak outside because it's comfortable where it is.
Nice. What would you do if you found a penguin in your freezer?
A penguin in my freezer?
Yeah.
Well, I'd hope it was not there very long because I'd really prefer if it were alive. I'd probably figure out what kind is it. and where does it need to go back to?
Nice. Would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
I don't know. I think duck-sized horses kind of sound fun.
If you could have a machine that produced $100 for life, how much would you be willing to pay for it?
I don't know if I would want that.
No? That's a good one.
It's too easy.
Yeah, that's true actually, but it's been given to you, Caryn. Just take it.
Well, but you said how much would I pay for it?
Yeah, so pay.
I wouldn't.
No? Nice. That's a good
In the end, even when money is easy, life isn't.
Correct. Well said, Caryn. Nice words there. Caryn, who are the people who have been the most influential in your life and career?
Definitely my parents. And I have a brother and sister. My husband, and my 3 kids. I think those are the people who most inspire me.
Right. If you could say one line or one sentence about each of those relationships, why they inspire you. Let's start with your parents, your husband, and your children.
My mom taught me how to take care of others. My father is always encouraging. He loves the phrases, "Don't let the turkeys get you down. If it is to be, it's up to me." And he's always very positive. And so that's been very powerful. My brother and sister, I think, my brother, sister, and I are all a year apart in age, but we're all incredibly different personalities. And so I think that helped me identify that with my own children, that just because we're related doesn't mean we're alike. My husband, he and I met in our late 20s. We're actually the same age. And I think he's allowed me to dream with somebody who understands my dreams and shares them. He challenges me. And he inspires me to do better.
Nice. Children?
I think my children have helped me step into my own more than anybody else, because I fight for them. And I also get to help them in their own personalities and bodies and experiences be the best that they can. Nice. And they inspire me. They're incredible, kind, smart, insightful, and observant people. So It's fun watching them grow.
Definitely, Caryn. That's beautiful. Caryn, if you could ask one question to your rescue pup, Scout, what would you ask him?
I'd probably ask her what her brother was like, because somebody adopted her brother before we adopted her. And so we didn't get to meet him.
Got it. Right. What have you observed lately that reminded you that people are kind?
I think with coronavirus, I've seen neighbors helping neighbors a lot more than they would, especially with those who have more fragile health, whether because of illnesses or chronic conditions or age. It's been really lovely to see neighbors reach out to one another, and especially before grocery deliveries were available so widely, helping elderly, make certain that they have the food that they need or the medicines that they need if there's not prescription delivery. shoveling, offering to shovel snow for people and mow lawns when lawn services stopped. It seems like everything stopped last spring. And so I think seeing people look around and slow down and observe what was happening and stepping in to see where they can help.
Who is the kindest person you know?
I think it's my daughter, Penelope. When she was very, very little, but not old enough to be out of the shopping cart when she and I would go to the grocery store and the boys were at school, she would tell anybody working in the store that they were doing a good job. So we'd go to the fabric store and she talked to the person cutting the fabric and say, "You are so good at that." And their faces would just light up. And like at one time at the grocery store, she disappeared for a second and she popped up because she was shorter than the conveyor belt for the groceries behind the cashier and gave them a hug and said, "You are doing such a good job today." And I just think she really sees the best in others and even the simple things. So I think we all need to step back and appreciate the simple things. And I think coronavirus has helped with that some. And I hope it continues.
Totally. So what's one personal trait you like the most about yourself?
I'm very empathetic. Sometimes I feel like I think because I'm empathetic, I can relate to people even if I don't have the specific experience they're having. And because of that, I guess I'm also a very good listener. So those two things really help me both in my personal and professional relationships.
Nice. What's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career?
I wish I'd known that I didn't have to choose a career for life. I think we live in this amazing time where we can change paths and we don't have to just choose one thing. And I think that's the really exciting thing. I have a sophomore in high school, so in 2 years, he'll be headed off to university. And I think the coolest thing is I can tell him, it's okay if you don't know what you want to do for the rest of your life, because yes, you'll want to choose something to specialize in, but that will lead you into other paths. So I never thought I would work for a startup software company. I never imagined I would own my own business. So, I guess the only limitation is our imaginations.
Well said, Caryn. So what's the best piece of advice you have received and from whom?
I think I would have to go back to my dad and if it is to be, it's up to me. It was I will be honest, it was really annoying and there were a lot of eye rolls growing up on my own part and with my brother and sister when my dad would say these things, but he's absolutely right. We are in control of ourselves and we get to make choices. And my husband likes to say that our choices dictate our choices, and they do. So I think those are very wise. I guess both, if it is to be, it's up to me, and our choices dictate our choices are really wise words for life.
That's beautiful, Caryn. Thank you. Caryn, I know 3 beautiful kids, beautiful family, parents, successful entrepreneur, empathetic leader, running APMP virtual consultant directory for Midwest chapter, and always been a good-hearted leader. What are you looking forward to in the future? What's next for Caryn Kent Dean?
I think continuing to spread the word about the work that we do in the world, supporting proposals, there's so much opportunity out there, and there are so many companies struggling with proposals. And at the same time, there are college students looking for jobs who don't know that this kind of work exists. And there are professionals who do the work that we do already, but are struggling with balance. So I think my mission is to connect all of those people with great opportunities and the opportunity to both do work that they love and have other things in their lives as well.
Wow. Well said, Caryn. Well said. Caryn, is there any part of your life or career that we haven't touched, or is there anything else you would like to share to our listeners before we close the podcast?
I think I would just say, following up on the kind of words of inspiration from my father and husband, and the idea of creating opportunity, is that we're in a really interesting place in time right now. I think while we've lost a lot with coronavirus, we've gained some as well. Certainly lives have been lost. And I think the disparity, the economic disparity between the haves and the don't haves have definitely been exacerbated. However, this is an opportunity for something different, and we get to make the choice to make it better.
Well said, Caryn. Well said. That's a beautiful way to close the episode. Thank you so much, Caryn, for your time today. It's been a privilege to have you with us at Scribble Talk. Wish you, your family, your colleagues, and everybody around you all the good health and happiness. Please continue to inspire bid and proposal industry colleagues and your family. Stay healthy, stay happy, stay sane, and continue to inspire people. Thank you, Caryn.
Thank you so much, Bhaskar and Ashley. I'm grateful.
To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please visit baachuscribble.com/podcast to listen to this episode and check out any of our other previously recorded episodes. If you've enjoyed today's interview, don't forget to subscribe, review, and share the Scribble Talk podcast. We hope you'll check out our next episode where we interview another industry expert and special guest. Until then, it's Ashley Kays,
Bhaskar Sundram,
signing off.